Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to this Greenport virtual conference. The growth in trade led to a massive use. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Raúl Cascajo. I'm working for the Port of Valencia. The growth in trade led to massive use of maritime transport, and this process has made a priority to implement policies to measure the impact on the environment. As a result, the ports, as logistic nodes, have their influence on the degradation suffered by the environment. This is the reason for the concept of the green port, which consists on combining the policies applied by the authorities to make the ports more sustainable and more respectful to the environment. The ports have tried to achieve a green status by betting on new technologies, adapting their infrastructures, and by investing resources in energy efficiency. The green concept is therefore gaining support as a way of developing and operating port business to prevent environmental degradation, biodiversity loss, and unsustainable use of natural resources. In order to meet the IMO deadlines, players in the maritime sector are prepared to take structural measures to make the system green. In this virtual panel discussion, we will discuss the following subtopics: strengthening environmental and energy efficiency activities, intelligent transport systems, relations between ports and green innovation, implementation of modern energy management. To give us the relevant information to start the discussion, we count the invaluable participation of 3 high-level experts from all over Europe: Andreas Lotte from Finland, Heidi Nilsson from Norway, Chrysanthi Kontogeorgi from Greece, and myself, Raúl Cascajo from Spain. Hello everyone, and thanks for your participation in this panel. We will start with Mr. Andreas Slotte. He is the head of Sustainable Development at the Port of Helsinki, where he's in charge of the Port Sustainable Development Strategy and activities. Foremost on the agenda at the moment is the implementation of the port's carbon neutrality program, the expansion and adaptation of youth sustainability reporting metrics, as well as further development of the port's environmental incentive program for vessels. Andreas is also in charge of the port's LNG accreditation process. He joined the Port of Helsinki in 2013, and he worked previously in operations before assuming his current role. He's also holding an MBA from Aalto University, and he's a master mariner. Andreas, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Raúl. Good afternoon, dear friends and listeners. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be able to present a few of the topics that are interesting to us at the moment and that we're working with. Let me get my presentation up and running. Like that. So if Raúl, you can tell me if you don't see it, otherwise I will assume that you can.
Yeah, it's okay.
Excellent. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of the status of our carbon neutrality program through the topic or my topic today, which is onshore power. Before I jump to the actual subject of the day, however, I wanted to say a few words about our motivation and our drivers. In our current strategy that we finalized last year, we stated our ambitions of becoming forerunners in sustainability issues. And the implementation of this strategy is well underway. And with the ambitions plans we have created, I feel confident that we will indeed be perceived as forerunners. The action plan that we have, it contains many sub-projects and subset of projects, and each is more important than the other. But there is one particular set of challenges to which we attribute more importance than all the others, and that is carbon neutrality. Now, we all know that the Paris Accord of 2015 states that we need to stay below 2 degrees centigrade to keep climate change in check. And for this to be possible, everything we do around the globe needs to be rethought and or at least reflected on. So it's about a small subset of our carbon neutrality program that I want to talk to you today, and that's namely our journey on the OPS, onshore power road. So to quickly sum up the goals of the whole program, reaching 100% carbon neutrality in our own operations is fairly easy. At least we have the roadmap is quite clear. You reduce the energy consumption and then you produce or buy the energy that you still need from renewable sources. But the difficult part is affecting emissions that you have no direct control over. But nonetheless, we have decided to include also these emissions in our own program. We are committed to reducing carbon emissions from the harbor area by 30% at least by the year 35. This will be done in many ways, by incentives, by optimizing infrastructure, by knowledge sharing, and so on. Now, last year, about 80% of in-harbor emissions in Helsinki were produced by vessels. So it's therefore very natural that we will focus and concentrate a lot of our efforts on, namely, helping the shipping companies becoming even more green and effective in their operations, both in and out of harbor. And the biggest tool in our toolbox concerning the vessels is onshore power. So that's what I will be focusing on today. Here we just see last year's split between the different emission types in our harbor. As I said, 80% from the vessels, but the port's own proportion is only 5%. So we can become completely carbon neutral. But if it only affects 5% of total emissions, then I think it's at least intellectually dishonest to claim that the harbor is carbon neutral. Our first OPS installation went online already in 2012. It's in the Katajanokka area, visible in the picture. It took us 8 years, but this year we will finally be able to say we have installed our next major OPS facility. As we can see from the picture, both these locations are very centrally located, and the value of these investments are therefore even bigger to the surrounding community and to our neighbors than just the smaller carbon footprint. Reducing noise and then improving air quality is, of course, very important to the residential areas situated close by. Now, the locations on the previous slides are not our only centrally located harbors, however. Next year, we'll see a concentration of shore power becoming online in area of Jätkäsaari. That's for our high-speed shuttle traffic to Tallinn, there in the picture. And again, we see from the picture that residential areas are close by. And when the area is completely built, according to the plans of the municipality, the closest residential buildings will actually be very much closer than we can even see here in the picture. And the locations I mentioned in the previous slides are located in the upper right-hand corner of the picture. This is our cruise center located between the first two locations. And by 2023, we will have the first cruise vessel installation operational. And then the locations are dashed because it's going to be a mobile connection that can be moved between the different berths. So we'll start with one unit and then work our way up as demand for onshore power increases. This is much more complex than OPS for ferries for various reasons. The position of the plug on the vessel, for example, is not standardized. The position of the equipment on the quayside is also, or for the same reason, cannot be standardized. So that's why we need the solution that is mobile that I just mentioned. Also, the cruise vessels tend to operate on 60 hertz, which requires additional frequency conversion from the 50 hertz grid that we have, and which is very expensive. Now, Warsaw Harbor, pictured here, is the main cargo harbor of the port of Helsinki, and it's located about 30 minutes to the east of the city center. Now, cargo traffic tends to operate on a less rigid schedule than passenger ferries, and that's a fact that might make OPS projects harder to implement, but there are exceptions. The pier that is marked serves traffic between Finland and Germany and actually has a high degree of utilization throughout the year. Now, what all these onshore power projects have in common is that they cater to locations with a high number of hours per day with ships alongside. So these are good candidates for shore power, in other words. We're talking, 6 to 8 hours per day, maybe, but every day. And the season for cruise ships is, of course, shorter, but at least the vessels tend to spend a fairly long time in harbor during that shorter season. There are, of course, many other projects also ongoing that aren't directly related to shore power, but this picture, for example, was sent to me a week ago from one of our solar panel installation projects. It's important to reduce your dependence on electricity that you need to buy. Up in Finland, in the north, where winter is long and cold, solar power isn't necessarily the most efficient, but you actually get surprisingly good power out of it in spring and summer. As I mentioned in the beginning, the road towards higher energy efficiency, or I should rather say lower emission energy consumption, it stands on the two legs. First of all, you need to buy or produce sustainably produced electricity, but you also need to conserve energy and use as little as possible. This picture just shows us LED lights that we have installed or in the end of this summer in a lot of very old buildings that are otherwise difficult to get energy efficient. But this is a very traditional method, but it's all these are all different size tools in the same toolbox with the same goals in sight. Going back to onshore power and the effect that it's going to have, what we estimate is that we estimate that we'll be able to reduce emissions from vessels at berth with between 50 and 80%. So if we add all the onshore power projects together that we're looking at the moment, or rather the ones that I showed you, the savings in emissions will be about 7,000 tons of carbon dioxide per year. If that's little or a lot, that of course it depends on the size of your port and the amount of traffic that you have. For us, that's actually quite a lot, and it amounts to about half of the savings from vessel traffic that we're looking at in our carbon neutrality program. So a few words then about the actual power management. How is this going to look in the future? Let me start by saying that there's a lot of questions, to be sure, regarding this question. Not as many answers yet, but we'll get there. Don't you worry at all. Here we see it's a graph of the fictional power consumption of a port under some different assumptions. The port's own consumption is pretty flat on this scale. Ferries, on the other hand, they provide a lot of power spikes because they have relatively short stays in harbor. And then you have the cruisers that have a prolonged stay with very high power demand, usually in the middle of the day. So all these needs to be balanced in some way. Here we see a graphical interpretation of one thought on a port of the future. We have large hybrid vessels using batteries and or onshore power. Smaller vessels, archipelago vessels, for example, might even be completely electrified. There needs to be energy reserves in the middle of the picture there, stored in some kind of medium. This picture portrays large batteries, but it might as well be something else, hydrogen, ammonia, what have you. We have flexible markets in the top part of the picture, very important, both for the buy side and the sell side. We're not in the position right now yet. We have an abundance of sustainably produced electricity of our own, but I know a lot of ports are, and they need to be able to use that efficiently in some way. You need intelligent port infrastructure, data platforms that runs and optimizes everything. That's of course very important when you try to build an integrated system. In the top left-hand corner, we see a production plant for heat. And heating is quite important actually in a country as far north as Finland is. About 30% of all emissions in Finland, carbon emissions, I should say, stems from heating of buildings. But this has ramifications also for vessels. Many vessels need to be heated also, not just cooled, which is maybe the more common topic when talking about cruise vessels, for example. Now, cruise vessels come here during the summer, so they maybe don't need it, but the ferries definitely need heating. And this used to be taken care of to a large part by reclaiming heat from the auxiliary engines' exhaust gas. But this is when we run into a problem because we just turned off the auxiliary engines because we connected the ferry to onshore power. So of course you can produce heat in many ways. Using boilers it's a traditional one, but the boilers of course tend to run on fossil fuels still on board vessels. But is there a way to get district heating onto the vessels? That needs to be figured out. This is just a schematic showing largely the same thing. This was created by a company called Helen, who's like us is a company fully owned by the city of Helsinki, but their core competence is energy production and distribution in urban environments. So we have the blue box in the middle is the harbor, and to the left hand side we have the energy production, and on the right hand side we have the users in harbor, mainly the vessels. So recycling goes to the district heating producing company and sends the heat back to the port, and hopefully in the future can connect carbon-free district heating also directly to the vessel, so you don't have to convert it to electricity in between. Electrified machines are already standard in many ports. But as the total electricity demand goes up, you're going to have more spikes, and you're going to need to have some kind of reserve that can even out the spikes. For example, using electrified cars that are imported when they're standing in the harbor, could they be used as a battery pack, for example? I don't know, but this is the type of questions that need to be answered, and leave no stone unturned, and so on. I think I'm coming up on the time that I was allotted, so I'll stop here. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening. Please ask questions when it's time for that, and connect on different medias if you want to continue the discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. We see some questions coming in, so we will go at the end of the presentations with the Q and answers section. We will address them to you. Thank you very much. Our next guest is Heidi Nilsson. Heidi is the head of the environment at the Port of Oslo. She holds a master's degree in geography and a bachelor's degree in environmental management. The mix of natural and social science is useful since the port's environmental impact as well as the influence on city deployment is important in the Oslo fjord city of Norway. In the environmental field, the Port of Oslo works in close relation to other authorities in the city and scientists who provide important knowledge. As Heidi says, we exchange views with colleagues in the city as well as promoting transport at sea, which we believe can play a vital part in the fight against climate change. The port and maritime businesses can cooperate to reduce the impact our sector has on the local environmental in cities. The city of Oslo works for 50% of reduction of CO2 in 2020, near to 95% reduction of CO2 in 2030. We are already in 2020, so let's see if this target of 50% of reduction is achieved at the end of the year. Thanks, Heidi. You have the floor, so I will keep mute.
Thank you very much, Raul. It's so nice to see all our port colleagues in Greenport network, even though it's only on a webinar. It would be nice to see you in person. Now let's see. I will share my screen with you. This is my presentation. If we are going to have sustainable transport system, the urban ports have to cooperate with all the different transport sectors to be able to increase transport without increasing emissions. We have looked at the port's core business and connected our future policy with the sustainability goals to build a sustainable future. If we want to grow, we have to find the sustainable solutions, and nobody can do that alone. We have to do that in cooperation with different ports, with different transport sectors, and also with all types of shipping companies and also fuel producers. So it's a huge possibility out there and so many solutions that are already there that we can take and use.
Excuse me, Heidi, are you sharing the screen?
I am sharing the screen. It's not working?
I don't see it.
I will try again.
Please.
Share. Thanks for letting me know, Raul. Let's see. Is that working better? Still not working?
Yeah, now we see it.
You see it. Thank you. Okay, here we go. So what we did was connect our core business in the port to the sustainability goals, because we think that the driving force that the sustainability goals have on a global level is going to help us to find the sustainable transport systems, both for shipping and also rail and road in combination. That's how we can build, and that's the possibility that all urban ports have. One can say that there's a lot of discussion when people move closer to the port, like we could see also in Helsinki, but I think this is a huge opportunity to find the best logistic solutions straight into the high densely populated areas, not just in Oslo, not just in Helsinki, but in the whole world. Port cities are densely populated areas. And I agree with Andreas, the fastest way for us to reduce emissions from the shipping side is definitely shore power. And it is a technology that is there and it's up for grabs. It's just to start using it. The ports need to build the infrastructure and the ships need to commit and build their ships to use the shore power. This is the port of Oslo. You can see the cargo port in front and the passenger port in the background. And the surroundings, this is, if you go 3 hours drive from Oslo port, you meet half of Norway's population. So it's very densely populated close to our port, which is a good thing. The city of Oslo has ambitious goals. They have looked at the Paris Agreement. What do cities around the world need to do? We need to drastically reduce our emissions. The city of Oslo has an aim for 95% reduction by 2030. And in our action plan in the port, the aim is 85% reduction. We know that from the transport that we do have in the port today and that we do want to grow on as well, we need shore power for most types of vessels. If all ships were on onshore power in Oslo, that would still just be maybe 50% reduction. The aim is 85%. That means that the sailing in and out also needs to reduce emissions. This map shows that you see the dots that are like blue purple. This is the local ferries in Oslo, and they are already electrified. The island ferries, they will also be electrified by 2025. The large RoPax ferries that Helsinki also has shore power for is in Oslo, it's Color Line, it's DFDS, and also here in the city center we have cruise vessels. So we're looking into building a solution also for cruise. So Andreas, we need to discuss in regard to a mobile solution. That sounds interesting. Start with the emissions. I would invite all port cities to cooperate with your city to look at where is the emissions today, what type of actions do we need? Because when we do this in Oslo, we see that the largest part in Oslo is transport. And we also know that a large part of this is related to building sites. All the development in our city has a lot of emissions related to building sites. So the city of Oslo has a demand for zero emission solutions also on their business building sites, and now they have expanded it to transport in and out to the building sites as well. And guess who's in our port? Many of the concrete production and the driving in and out to the zero emission building sites, they are in the port. They are a large part of the producers of the different emissions on land. So when the city is ambitious, that also pushes our customers in the port. This just shows that we have looked at who has the highest emissions, and this is in regard to transparency. Look at the facts, use IES data, see who actually has the highest emissions, and find solutions for them first. But don't push the cargo from sea to land. We have to combine. We have to combine low emission at sea and zero emission at land if we have a shorter distance on land. So concrete, what are we doing in the Port of Oslo? We are planning for a future zero emission port. We have looked at, just like Andreas, all the different types of infrastructure that we think is necessary. This was what we started with. We looked at biogas production from our sewage plant. We could see that the production, if you took all the sewage in our capital city, that would still just be 1/3 of a ship's use of biogas. If an LNG ship would go over to biogas, that would still just be 1/3 of the ships consume, one per year, if you took all the biogas from all the sewage in Oslo. So in our case, this can be different in different ports, but in our case, the biogas production is possibly better used in industry heating in the port and not for the ships. In regard to using the energy in the producing hydrogen when the prices of the energy is lowest, we looked at this. Hydrogen needs a secured zone. In a very compact urban city like Oslo, it's not easy to find the areas for this. We haven't put away hydrogen, but we cooperate with other ports in the Oslo fjord, thinking that maybe not all ports need to produce hydrogen. Maybe one of the port in the fjord need to produce hydrogen and to supply several of the ports, maybe from ship side, so you don't need all the infrastructure in the port. So that's why it's also important for the ports in the region to discuss solutions, not just for ourselves, but looking at broadly for several of the ports, but also include the transport sector. Don't forget the transport sector. Everything that comes in by ship needs to go out by car or truck or tanker, trailer. All kind of heavy transport goes out of all our ports. So finding good partners that are looking into solutions for reducing their emissions from the transport sector, that's where we find the gold. That's the green gold. That's when we find the logistics systems that cooperate low emissions from sea transport and zero emission on land. We looked at all of these issues. We looked at also the vehicle to grid, Andreas, in regard to 50% of the, or let's say the 25,000 cars that come into Oslo each and every year, they are now electric, so they have batteries. We looked at using the batteries on the cars for vehicle to grid solutions. There has to be a discussion in regard to the market on energy for this to be possible. But also the experts that we had in our concept study, they were not convinced that they wanted to buy a new electric car that had been used for sharing energy in and out of the battery before you actually get it. So it should be tried out. Possibly there are solutions that are in the future that are absolutely safe and good also for the new car. But at the moment, we couldn't find that in our study. We also looked at solar panels. In a discussion in the port, there has been discussion of having green roofs in our port because we have neighbors that can look straight down to our port area and we want it to look nice. Now we're having a discussion if the roofs actually need to be used for solar panels instead. Not everyone are convinced that that's a good thing to do, but we are looking into it and trying it out. So if you have started your project, Andreas, I need to find your experience because we haven't built them yet. We are in the progress of doing so. The concept study is based on a bottom-up approach. That's the 8-year-old in the door. We looked at all the type of energy that we have on the station that is established in the port, in the different parts of the port. We looked at if all the transport in and out of this area should be electric, how much does the ships that are there at the moment need for shore power and possibly battery for sailing in and out, zero emission. For 7 nautical miles, it's a very short distance. And we also looked at having batteries for getting the peaks down, and we looked at solar panels on the roofs. So we put everything in at all the different sectors of the port. And we find that to become a zero emission port, it means a large investment. You need a lot of infrastructure. And we're not sure where to start, but we have chosen to start with shore power, also because there is still funding for building shore power in Norway. And also some of our customers are actually beginning to ask, and the sector that now wants shore power is the cement ships. They're coming in with cement and they're mixing it with sand and stone, and it's concrete going out to the zero emission building sites. They want to reduce, it's the same company that just got funding for CO2 capturing at their cement industry further down in the fjord. So they're looking at their whole chain, from production of concrete, from transporting all the different materials, into the zero emission building sites. So they're looking at the whole chain, and these are the cargo managers or owners that we need to catch. Those are the actors that will move the market in a large way. So we have made some priorities, and that is shore power at some of the segments, and where the government is actually asking us about power will be there, they will be those ships to be equipped when the infrastructure is there. So the early movers are those that we communicate most with and find the solutions together with. What you see on the map is the prioritized shore power solutions that we're building. This is all connected to building sites, zero emission building sites. This is the container terminal. This is the tankers, the fuel coming in, both aerial fuel and also all kinds of transport fuel. This is more other types of cargo, and here is the cars coming in, the import. So to sum up, we decided to do it ourselves. The Port Authority, just like in Helsinki, it's a small amount of the total emissions from the port and the transport in our port area. But still, it's important that we try out the solutions that we push forward onto our customers. So most of our cars, and we have our first truck that now is electric. And we also have Pelican, our first working boat that's fully electric, that was just on water this summer. So showing that highly or all electric battery driven transport is possible. I think that the port should, when it's economically viable and you can, then push forward. This is the shore power solutions for the RoPax ferries. All RoPax ferries now have shore power in the Port of Oslo. This is the local ferry. It has been through a ride from being a diesel fueled, from being LNG driven, and now they're battery. So they're zero emission in and out all year around. This is our container terminal. Everything on land is electric, but there's still the large trucks and the tugs are not. But the operator is looking for the supplier that can commit to this, and we have the electric power to provide it. Now we have built shore power for RoPax ferries. Now we're moving into the cargo part. Container vessels, but also bulk vessels connected to zero emission building sites. And also there is movement on the transport sector. Hybrid solutions are being discussed. Biogas is a possibility, but they're just waiting for the biggest battery to actually you just go for battery if they can. So they're not so enthusiastic about biogas, even though the heavy trucks could easily use it. We also support the customers that go forward and commit to zero emission solutions. And we also cooperate with the ports in our region. So with that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Heidi. It's been a very interesting presentation. Please stay close for the Q&A section. And last but not least, from the sunny Greece, we have Ms. Chrysanthi Kontogeorgi. She's the environmental officer and safety advisor at the Port Authority of Piraeus. She's been working at the Port Authority of Piraeus since 2002 and at the position of the head of environmental protection sector since 2008. She's a chemical engineer with a specialization in the science technology of materials from the University of Athens, and she's also certified as safety advisor on dangerous cargoes transportation. She holds more than 17 years of experience in port environmental management, and since 2004, she's activated on port environmental review system certification and EcoPorts network membership. She is member of the Sustainable Development Committee of ESPO and has participated in several European Union co-finance projects as group leader of the Port Authority of Piraeus coordination and in other environmental projects on port environmental management. Before joining the Port Authority Piraeus, she had worked as a consultant on occupational safety in industrial sector. Chrysanthi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just to share my, okay. Okay, everything fine? Yeah? Okay, can start. Hello from my side. Actually, today in Greece is not very sunny, but it's a little bit cloudy. Okay, I will try to give in a snapshot the environmental management that we implement in Piraeus Port and steps by step the approach to the new era of Green Deal for EU. Here in Piraeus Port, we implement a management system that is consists of environmental quality monitoring programs and reporting, pollution preparedness and prevention planning, sea and land, and of course, from the review result, we take the appropriate treatment actions. From the implementation of the environmental review system and the self-diagnosis method that we follow, there are the key environmental issues that we are dealing with. And the main of them is the noise, air quality, and energy consumption, waste from ship and land-based sources, the seawater quality, the relationship with the local community, and the port development planning. From the
It's frozen. Apparently she had some connection troubles. Let's see if she can rejoin us. Okay, she's probably going out and back again. Let's wait for 1 minute more, please. Well, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions for Andreas or Heidi or even Chrysanthi, just drop them on the Q&A box, and then we will go to, at the end of the session, we will try to answer as many as we can. Okay, she seems to be back. Chrysanthi, you there?
you hear me? Sorry for the interruption.
Don't worry.
Had a bad connection.
Okay, don't worry. Go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. A very significant, also key environmental aspect for us is waste, and mainly the seed generated waste. We have a huge diversity of seed we facilitate to our to the port installations, and with different streams of waste that need further operation. Also, the noise and monitoring of the noise is a main aspect for us, especially in the commercial port. Is one of the significant issues that we focused on because of the that the port is situated very close to the city. And regarding the pollution and the pollution incidents, we follow specific planning, emergency planning for response and prevention. And we have very good results the recent years. We have managed to mitigate enough the pollution incident in the port area. The main sustainability issues that we are dealing with last 5 years, let's say, it's actually focused on air quality, and we work especially on energy consumption and carbon footprint mitigation. The first step is the monitoring of air quality. We operate a permanent air quality monitoring station in the passenger port of Piraeus. The station is have been operating since 2009. And it's 24 plus 7 measurements that they are recorded. And the main parameters that we monitoring is the BGEX, SO2, CO, NOx, PM10, and ozone. Also, on 2018, we start to have a more specific study on air quality, and actually we follow the dispersion models with targeting to see how the port and the activities related to the port affect the nearby cities. The main results we can either proceed here. The main result is the great volume of the NOx parameters. The NOx measurements come from the activity of commercial port, mainly the container and also from the ferries activity, the passenger port. We can see here that we have actually the same input for the NOx measurements coming from container and from passenger port. That I have to mention that two ports are in different sites and are connected with different cities. The passenger port is located nearby to Piraeus city, and the container port is container terminal port is located near to Perama city. But it's very close in its area. Here is indicative results of the air quality dispersion model for NO2. Actually, the container terminal, you can see here. Can you hear me? It's okay. Okay. You can see here, this is the container terminal, and here is the passenger and cruise terminal. Also, we can see how it's the dispersion model for SO2 and PM10 and PM10. The general results have to do with NO2 is that the higher levels are met in the central port area, but during the early morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, are met at commercial port. Also, 80% correlation factor with the result of measurements recording was defined. That is the correlation with the permanent station, the result of the permanent station. And that gives us the idea that the whole monitoring system through the network of monitoring stations will be very accurate in order to see how we affect and what period during the day we affect the city and what percentage. The main result for SO2 is that the higher levels are met in the central port, the passenger port actually, but during the early also morning times are met on commercial port. That happens and that is correlated with the traffic that is more 24 based on commercial port and actually more to early 6 to 10 to night, 6 in the morning until 10 to night to the passenger port. Regarding to PM10, we have limited level concentrations that are not exceed 20 micrograms per cubic meter. And the finding consistent with the limited emissions during to the ships movement and their stays in the port. Now, we'll see how we work on approaching for the net zero emission port concept. The main target is the renewable, the enforcement of the renewable energy sources. The cold downing concept in specific areas implementing, and overall the energy consumption management for the whole port activities. That will happen, and we have already started through the EU funding project SUPER. We try to, and we have already elaborated a specific energy management action plan with the correlation and with the big contribution and collaboration with the stakeholders. The first step was to identify the common priorities, to prioritize the integrated actions and measures, exchange the best practices, and finally enhance the capacity. The structure of the port action plan in a nutshell. Actually, in order to elaborate this plan, we try to find out and to see how we can afford the energy efficiency of port installations. The renewable and clean energy sources, we examine the renewable and the clean energy sources. The existing reporting, we evaluate the existing reporting frameworks for the PPA. And we focused on CO2 estimation method, carbon footprint assessment, and decarbonization strategies. Step by step, definition of sustainable port, understanding current port operations, stakeholders consultation. From the result, we take the evaluation from framework. We plan the action plan, actually, solutions design, strategies for actions deployment, coordination with relevant plans, assessment design and implementation, and the monitoring plan. These three last steps are the future steps that we plan to follow. The deployment plan actually raises the main key interests that we have to focus, and some of them are already included in our master plan for the next 10 years implementation. First of all, we have already implemented and we plan to enhance the air quality monitoring system. Deployment and operation of charging stations infrastructure for electric vehicles, that is, and also the electric buses, eco buses for transportations in port area. That are two of them are included in our master plan. Governing establishment of infrastructure for the electrification of ships and LNG supply facility for vehicles and ships in ports. For these two actions, we have already have the preparatory studies, and we, through also our participations to EU projects, and we are on design phase in order to see what's the priorities in the port area for implementation. Implementation of LED technology, LED technology for outdoor lighting is something that is already in process. Implementation of LED technology for indoor lighting is something that we are working on this, and is in phase of planning. Energy mapping and monitoring system, and also energy saving interventions in buildings, active and passive. This is also something that is in near future planning. And the installation of photovoltaic power plants, enhancement actually of the already existing environmental photovoltaic power plant, were on study stage. From our participation to the EU Poseidon Med 2 project, we focused on LNG bunkering, and we examined the possibilities and the best efficiently solutions for the port of Piraeus. Okay, I don't want to give you a lot of information. That is, I think it's very common, and you have some of them, most of them you have already listened. Actually, through the Poseidon Med project, we examine the connection with the LNG terminal that is nearby the port of Piraeus in Revithous Island, the connection with the LNG terminal of Revithous Island, the transportation mode that is selected also two modes, through the barge bunkering and through truck bunkering. And also we focus on vessels users. Actually, in our case, the Port of Piraeus is focused on vessel users consumption. So examined and selected the LNG bunkering for 2 RoPax ferries, a ship-to-ship actually scenario, and for one pax, these 2 RoPax are the sites are here in the central port of Piraeus, and one RoPax catamaran ferry that is examining the scenario of tractor ship bunkering. The estimated demands of LNG bunkering for Piraeus port is approximately, for actually these 2 case studies that we examined, is approximately 74,000 cubic meters per year in 2 separate piers for bunkering in passenger ports. Sorry. And we examined the scenario for bunkering services by using barges of 500 cubic meter and 1,000 cubic meter capacity in connection, as we said, already mentioned, with the Warsaw Island. And also we examined an alternative scenario, truck operations by direct ferry transportation from Revitusa and road access to the port. We elaborate the hazard analysis for these 2 scenarios, and also the safety, we define the safety exclusion zone that we have to follow. Sorry. For the 2 scenarios, the 2 separate scenarios, ship-to-ship, LNG bunkering, and also tractor-ship LNG. The current opportunities for towards a zero-emission port, we have the new legislation from EU and also agreements and requirements from EU and national regulation strategies. We're looking for advanced technology solutions, collaboration among port authorities, and collaboration also among involved actors focused on local and national level, implementation of pilot actions for assessing future actions. The Port of Piraeus is an intermodal transport chain. It's consisting in an area, it's located in an area that have to connect it with 4 different cities, and with different mode of transport. We have passenger ferries, cruise ferries, cruise ships, commercial also that have to do with container and car carriers, and also ship repair activities. And that is the meaning of the focusing on exchanging our strategies and the future plans with the shareholders, and we are trying to be to make them to be a part of our plan for the future. Some very soon a few figures of our socio-economic footprint policy, a footprint actually. We managed to, on 2019, we increased our spending for corporate social responsibility initiatives by around 19%. And for the environment, we actually spend environmental actions that included also land and sea cleaning, environmental protection services, about 1.4 million euros. And we are plans to save about 600 tons of CO2 emissions. We are keep running. We try to reduce, and we are try to be part and member of the cluster of environmental management that have to do with European and international ports. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Crisanti, and thanks for your presentation. Please stay around for the Q&A questions. We have been answering some of the questions because maybe we don't have plenty of time after my presentation. So if you want to choose one or two, maybe at the end of the day, we can leave 2 or 3 per speaker on the live on live mode. So I will start with my presentation. It's gonna be short, so let's go for it. Here it is. I think it's here. Let me see. Okay, yeah. Okay. Do you see that? Oh yes. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna talk about the decarbonization and environmental challenge for ports and the case of Valencia. My name is Raul Cascajo, as I said, and I'm head of environmental policies at the Port Authority. This is, yeah, okay, okay. This is gonna be the index. It seems to be tough, but it's gonna be very quick. This is Valencia Port in figures. This is the total cargo throughput. We have gone from 37 million to 76 million in 2018. So it's a great increase. On the energy consumed, we have to consider that when you address the energy related issues, we have gone in the same period from 38 to 72 million kilowatts hour. And then on the energy cargo use per metric ton, we have gone from 1.03 to 0.94. So the trend is that we're doing a little better on the handling of the cargo. On the environmental management, I will just show some highlights. This is the EcoPort project. It's not the EcoPort sponsored by ESPO, but this is a different one. It's a live project that was executed in the Port of Valencia, 1988. 2000 is the first environmental policy signed by the Board of Directors. 2003, the first PER certificate. 2006, the ISO 14001 standard certified. 2008, the EMAS certification, well, the register EMAS certification. And then let's go for the energy transition initiatives. First of all is the renewable energy implementation. We have looked into wind power. We have some studies, nothing yet. We will show you afterwards. After all, where are our plans? Solar power, lightning, voice, hot water, use of cleaner fuels such as LNG for ships, hydrogen. Heidi has mentioned the hydrogen. We bet strongly for hydrogen in Valencia. The condition of our port, it's different than in the fjords, and it makes easier to handle production of hydrogen in our port. And this is the key for our future development, which is the electric substation at the Port of Valencia. If we don't have that, we will not be able to supply energy to ships. And we have run some OPS studies at the port of Valencia, basically, and some of them also at the port of Gandia. The emission reduction strategies of greenhouse gases, well, as Heidi mentioned before, this is not really inventing the wheel, but the substitution of port machinery and car fleets by hybrid and electric, enhancing the use of railway, electrification of port terminals. I would like to point that electrification is not gas reduction if it is not clean energy. Energy efficiency measures implementation, lightning, and other stuff like this, and smart grids tool implementation. This is a slide that shows the evolution of the carbon footprint in the port of Valencia. We are now calculating the carbon footprint for 2018-2019. So next year we will be able to offer the results for 2019 as well. And we have gone from 2008-2016, we had a cargo increase of 24%. However, we had a carbon footprint decrease of 17%. How are we doing that? We're using some environmental improvement tools that we call green agreements with the port tenants and the ships. The port tenants, we have an incentive on activity tax between 15 and 30% to all the port concessions. The estimated reduction from 2011, it's 15,000 tons of CO2, and reduce of 50% of port use to vessel using cleaner technologies when berthed. This is not, this is a rebate that it's reflected in the regulatory framework. So it's nothing to do with the environmental shipping index or the green award or something like that. Some ports in Spain, they offer as well some additional rebates if they fulfill some conditions on the score for the ASC, for example. And well, we rely too much on our research and development projects, and these are some examples of the ones that we have been developing lately in the field of energy and climate change. And some of them are currently running. The H2 ports, which is the implementation of H2, well, hydrogen as fuel for port handling machinery. Green sea ports, which is related to the digitalization of the port. Ealing OPS, which is related to the design of OPS facilities in ports, and the Ealing Works Valencia port, which is related to it's funding the building of the electric substation for OPS. So as you see, we have these 4 projects have started recently, and they will finish in. Next steps. This APV energy plan, APV stands for Port Authority of Valencia, is a definition of an energy strategy to meet current and future energy demands, considering the best and cleanest technology available. Our target is to have a zero emission port in 2030. Management of the electric network of the Port of Valencia. Renewable energy projects. As I mentioned before, we have some estimations, and for Gandia, we will have 1.5 megawatts photovoltaic plant. In Valencia, in 2021, we have the first phase of the implementation, which is 750 kilowatts photovoltaic power plant. And then in 2022, another additional 6 megawatts photovoltaic plant in Valencia, plus the wind power plant, which we don't know yet which is going to be the final power, the power installed power of the plant, but we need to start with 15 megawatts. Otherwise, we will not be able to produce enough power for feeding the port. And this will not be able to start before 2023 because it is linked to the development of the new north terminal in the port of Valencia, and the time frame will be almost alike. And as I said before, the electric substation in the port of Valencia by 2023, and this substation will make possible the supply of the vessels when they are at berth. And this is all I wanted to say. If you have any questions, just drop them in the Q&A box, and we will address them to the panelists. I have chosen some of them. We will start, if you want, from in the opposite way. Let's start with Crisanti. There is a question that I have chosen from the pool. It says, we all expect the results of Porto's project. Can we see similar initiatives in Mediterranean Sea? Do you know what it's related to?
Actually, I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Aren't you involved in the...
It's a project that is applied in the north part, and maybe they have to see if there's something common in Mediterranean, but I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay.
I don't know what.
Okay, I have one for Heidi.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. It's who do you reach out to first as a first third-party partner when you decide on a new shore power installation?
The third party. The concept study that we did was in cooperation with consultants that's part of the grid management in the city, which was important for us to get an overview of the capacities that are in or close to the port. So knowing what amount of energy that you have and finding the investments necessary to supply and increase use of renewable energy in the port is important to find out early. In regard to a third party in building the infrastructure, we follow the same strategy as the municipality. So it's everything's out on what do you call the commission, or it's competition who can give the best solution to the best price, and also if it has different solutions that can be combined, that will also increase the chance of winning the competition for building the sites. And reaching out in part of shipping, we actually look at which shipping companies are at this berth most often. All ports know who has the largest emissions at different berths. So that's who you start with. And the good thing that when we cooperate with the other ports in the region, we can see that it's the same shipping companies that are in the different ports around the Oslo fjord. So when they are building shore power solutions, we are planning to build, we want the same solution. So it's plug and play in each and every port. And that will show for the shipping companies that the investment on their ship is better when you can see that you actually can use it in several ports. And it's sort of it's a relief for the shipping companies knowing that the same solutions can be used several places and different ports. And I think this is really important in regard to cargo ships, especially. Thanks for a good question.
Okay, I'll have one for Andreas, which has been mute for a long time. What is the incentive for shipping lines and cruise lines to use shore power at your berths rather than just running their own fuel? How do you monetize shore power for the port?
Well, yeah, there definitely needs to be incentives and incentives, and not the carrot rather than the stick, I should say. Incentive is always the better way to go when you try to try to make business change and adapt. But there are some issues. First of all, well, the monetization is well, it's easy in the sense that we sell the electricity to the shipping company. So that's the super short answer. But how do you determine the price? That's of course the more difficult part. First of all, the investments needed for just for one shore power installations are huge, require huge capex. So you need to recoup that investment in some way at some point of time. Maybe the payback time is going to be longer than your traditional investments, but still, you can't just go around throwing money at the problem with no business case behind it, because then you're going to run out of money and at some point, and that's not sustainable either. You have to have solutions that are sustainable both for the environment, but also from the economic point of view. So you can afford the next cycle of green investments that are needed. But yeah, but so that you have to come up with a price that is good for the shipping company, in the sense that they feel that they can also that they aren't being sort of robbed compared to their alternative. And the alternative, of course, is to use traditional bunker fuels at harbor. So it's a balance that you need to find, and you need to do it, I think, in cooperation with the shipping company. There's no point in trying to do it by yourself. This is a cooperation. Said many times by all the speakers, the huge investments, long-term investments. So that's why you need to do it together. But it's not an easy question to determine the price, for sure.
Thank you, Andreas. I have another one for Chrysanthi. It says that currently LNG is acknowledged as emission-friendly fuel. However, it has methane slip emission. And go, are you ready for that? It says, so a lot of discussions going on for zero emission shipping. Can nuclear power be a solution?
Actually, regarding the methane slip, is a part of the studies, and it's an issue that is studied, and also there is some developments of equipment or in the process studies that have to do and calculate also this. Regarding the nuclear, especially for Greece, it's something very amateur for us. I can't see for the near future something like that. I don't know if there's something in the more after a lot of alternatives ways that we have to follow, and they haven't the results. For us, it's not, I think it's a very immature solution for the moment.
I don't see nuclear solution as a solution either, but right now, maybe in 20 years, something is different. But I will take one if you allow me. It says that, Mr. Cascajo, do you see the prospect of tight collaboration between solar industry and green projects? Absolutely. As Spain is one of the most suitable countries for solar energy production in Europe, the use of this type of renewable energy would be a great contribution if it is possible. I can tell you that the projects I have mentioned in my presentation are projects in the port. Some of them are on the roofs of the buildings, and some of them are on the breakwaters. So we have to find out, or to figure out, what will be the best solution to take advantage of the sun we have here. And we are assessing we're carrying out some assessment studies for the implementation of different type of solar panels in order to take advantage of all free surfaces that we have in the port. That we don't have so many, but you have, for example, the walls of the breakwaters or so. If you are able to find a solution for vertical solar panels or whatever, then that would be also a solution. And I had one for Heidi. Sorry. What kind of initiatives take the Port of Oslo to deal with scrubber waste?
Those who use scrubbers, they have waste facilities in other ports than in Oslo. So it has not been part of our waste management at all. We have oily sludge as part of what all ships can deliver as part of the basic fee. So, but the scrubber solution, that's a different type of waste, and nobody has asked us to handle it for them. So it's not been a problem here. I think they have regular solutions in other ports. The scrubber solutions is mainly for the RoPax ferries like Color Line and the FDS. So possibly Port of Copenhagen and Port of Kiel have some solutions, but in Oslo we don't.
Okay, there's another one for Andreas. What does it take so long to get shore power installed?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think both Heidi and I answered it already in the written section. So please take a look at those answers also. But I would say to sum it up, that the issue is much more complex than we make it sound maybe when we talk about it. It's easy to think that you just you have an electricity cord and then you plug it into the wall and that's it. But and if it only were that simple, but it's not even close. Hugely complex investments and facilities needed. Now it's becoming easier when we're having standardization and we have gone through the first steep step of the learning curve. But we're talking huge energy needed, especially for the cruise vessels. Might easily be the same demand as a smaller city just for one vessel. So everything included needs to live up to the same demand. That puts a huge strain on the electricity grid in the area. Is that big enough? Of course, the vessel needs to be able to receive electricity from ashore, and this is only becoming possible, now. And still to this day, a lot of the new builds are not even equipped to receive shore power. So yeah, it's a good question, but the answer is complex, and but case specific. So yeah, I hope that I answered it to the degree, at least, that the one who asked the question wanted.
Okay, thank you, Andreas. I will address this one. That's the last one for Chrysanthi, because we are running out of time. My curiosity is about future possibility of electric container ship which will work with batteries. How much attention is being paid to the development of electric ship sector?
Actually, we have some studies that run out on electrification of ships, but our main focus target is more the passenger ships than the commercial. And that is also including in our master plan for the near future. I think the demands of electrification of the electric consumption of electric energy consumption is different to the ships of container ships or vehicle cargo transport ships. But now we are focused more on passengers because we have a heavy traffic of passenger ships with different approach for the for the small ones that have often arrivals and departures in the city, near to the city.
Thank you, Crisanti. I will have another one for Heidi, which is the last one. It says the CAPEX hurdle is a barrier to the widespread adoption of LNG engines to the industry. Which steps could be taken in order to make the transition to the LNG effective?
Answering to that, I think LNG is definitely a cleaner fuel than today's fossil fuels. I think it will be in combination with other types of fuels, and I think I would prefer to. We're not building LNG infrastructure in the port of Oslo. There is LNG supply from Norway, and Equinor is planning to use LNG with carbon capture to produce hydrogen for shipping. I believe that if we want to have a change over to more renewable fuels, instead of fossil fuels, we both need carrot and stick. The stick can be national regulations, preferably global regulations, or it can be regional regulations in regard to setting emission roofs and leaving up to the different companies how to, if you're going to sail in this region, we need to lower our emissions. And if you have transparency, you will see who emits what and how much each and every one should contribute. I think also that fossil fuels need to have a different price so the renewable fuels can start the competition on a plain level field. And I do believe that if ports will build infrastructure, shore power will be part of the energy mix and fuel mix that ships need in the near future. With building wind power and solar power and more renewable energies, shore power will also be very cost efficient compared to other types of fuels. So in regard to getting a shift, I think building infrastructure and letting the front runners have a low price when they start using it. When the infrastructure is at this berth and the ships choose not to rebuild and not use the infrastructure, maybe the price should be higher. And maybe everyone needs to pay a little bit more per every berth so we can start building infrastructure in a larger scale that will be very productive and very reassuring for the shipping companies, knowing what they can fit their ships for the future.
Okay, Heidi, thank you very much. This one is for Andreas. Is there any sustainability report in which we can see the trend of reduction of emissions from the port? If yes, then how is this data being prepared and how it is getting verified?
Yeah, I saw similar questions in the chat also. I think that the best way to get an overview of shipping emissions is from the EU MRV database. That is an audited EU database that shows every ship that calls on a European vessel's fuel consumption throughout the year. And that's very good, and it's a great development that we have the MRV database. However, you cannot filter out port emissions from that. And if we're talking strictly about carbon emissions, it doesn't really matter because carbon emissions, as we all know, it doesn't matter where they are produced. It's just the fact that they are produced that's the problem. Every port, calculates their own emissions in their own way. Every port area, for example, starting with the definition of the port area, where do you physically draw the line? That's going to change. So it's difficult. But ESPO, the European Seaport Organization, they compile information from all the European ports, for example, every year. So that's a good place to look. But is there a standardized audited way of reporting emissions from every port all over Europe? Then the answer is no. Heidi?
That is the last question. I'll get
No, I
the
just
last one.
thought that maybe Heidi, because she's also active in ESPO, could add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. They say, well, yeah, well, Andreas mentioned about the procedure to report the emissions. I understood there is another question. It says, even though the sustainable fuel is or will be used to reduce emission, but who is calculating the emissions and who's checking the data? I understood that when you are talking about the emissions, you're talking about the greenhouse gas emissions. So in this case, well, there is this standard that could be reporting. In our case, in the case of the Port of Valencia, we are calculating the emissions ourselves. We get the information from all the companies, and we, of course, we translate it into emissions, into the using the relevant factors, and we use them. Who's checking them? Well, for example, in our case, is Lloyd's Register. We have our carbon footprint. It's verified by Lloyd's Register, and they check that and they confirm that the data is correct. So I think it's time enough to finish this panel. Thank you very much to all panelists, good friends of mine, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person, to have you and to have a beer together. So it's been a pleasure to spend this time with you and to share this information about our ports and about our initiatives. Thank you very much to all of you.
Just one question, Raul. Do you want us to answer the questions in the chat? Continue to do that, or do you lock down?
If you have the time and you are encouraged to do it, then it's good, because the people who have dropped the questions there, I don't want them to feel unattended. So if you feel free, if you want to answer them, it's okay for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.